I am Reverend Tyler will be out for the next couple of days, but I am grateful that our colleague and friend Selena Singleton, who is a digital media organizer for Power and also host of the Spicy Pecan podcast, is here with us this morning. Selena, how are you this morning?
I am doing fantastic. And speaking of fighting for things, I am definitely fighting to stay awake this morning. This is a new time. I have not seen this time of day in a long time, but definitely very grateful to be here. Thanks, Bishop.
Awesome, awesome. And holding it down for us, making sure that we're on the air, making sure that the studio is prepared, the airwaves are shocked and fired up, is Kawesa. Kawesa, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. How was your ride in this morning?
It was fairly easy. No complaints, no issues. I didn't run into any traffic. The weather is pleasant right now. My biggest thing though is that when I came out to my car this morning, there were like hundreds of little tiny gnat and mosquito looking things hanging on my car. And I
Oh,
had to
wow.
fight them to
Wow.
get into my car.
And I know you're not down with bugs.
I
So
am not. We know this. But they were little. Like it wasn't like, I little bugs don't really bother me like that. But the thing is, I was like, okay, but there's like 100 of them on my door, so I don't need like 50 of them getting into my car while I'm driving and eating me up. So, yeah, that was the only thing though. That was weird. I've never seen that many before.
I got you.
But that
I
was
got
about
you.
it.
Well, yeah, that is a challenge. At least it's not the cicadas. So the cicadas have not been a problem up here. But when I am back down in Maryland, they are all over the place. As a matter of fact, the cicadas are actually just infesting everything. I went home and on my front step were just dead cicadas everywhere. I had to go get a broom to sweep them away because there were so many of them. So I hear you on the gnats, but big bugs that are ugly and can't see and just fly into everything are just a tad annoying. I don't know about you, but that might be. I could only imagine you, Koisa, in a field of cicadas.
No, don't imagine. No, don't even put that in the universe. I don't. Those things are so gross, man. But
Yeah.
at least I know that. Like I've seen cicadas before. Like I've never had an issue where they've like kind of like attacked me, I guess I should say. So like I don't have as much of a fear. But if they got in the house, I probably things would be broken. They would
I hear
break.
you. And the thing about they can't see, so you don't even know what they're attracted to noise, I think, and that's what they're moving towards. So I was at my daughter's graduation on Saturday morning because it got canceled Friday night because of the rain, and they were flying a drone because they were broadcasting the graduation too because it was outside, and the cicadas, and we were in the middle of this football field. There's no trees or anything nearby, but the cicadas were attracted to the noise that the drone was making. And so they were following the drone around. So as the drone was swinging over the crowd and everything, cicadas were coming all over the place. It was actually quite amusing. I have to say that it was quite amusing. So anyway, getting back, so Selena, how are you with the cicadas and the bugs, and how do you deal with all that?
I'm all good. I'm better with the bugs than I am with rodents. That's my thing. I can't handle the small little rodents. Like I can barely handle squirrels. If you see one, you kind of think it's a mouse real quick. But yeah, the bugs, I'm pretty good with.
You deal with bugs. I hear you. If rodents, you've never lived in New York, then evidently
No.
New York City. That's a thing. I hear you. I hear you. Well, there's so much going on in the news today. A lot happening that we need to have a conversation about this morning. Many concerns are being lifted up right now, and we want to be able to touch on that. First thing, I mean, some good news, shocker, that's coming out of Washington, D.C., that the Senate of all places, the U.S. Senate of all places, on the other day passed a bill establishing Juneteenth as a national holiday. Now, it still has to go through the House. But both the Democrats and the Republicans agreed to make Juneteenth national holiday. It is absolutely shocking that this happened. We don't know who and what. I mean, Chuck Schumer certainly brought the motion to bear. Ron Johnson had single-handedly, he was a Republican from Wisconsin, of course, was objecting to the legislation, but they were actually finally able to get the bill passed. And, the federal workers will have another holiday on Juneteenth. As a matter of fact, Juneteenth is this weekend. And there is going to be some special programming here at WURD. As a matter of fact, on Friday, June 16th, at JD's Live. Actually, 16th is today. Solomon Jones is going to be at JD's Live doing a featuring Get to Know campaign with a focus on Father's Day from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So you might want to check that out. And then on Saturday, June 19th, from 9 to 11, Michael Cord's going to be hosting a special broadcast around Juneteenth. So you want to definitely check that out. So this is amazing. If this bill passes the House, Juneteenth will become the 11th annual federal holiday. However, only federal workers are required by law to get the federal holiday off. That means then we have to start moving to make sure that states and municipalities and counties and other governments start giving Juneteenth as a holiday as well. But congratulations to Senator Chuck Schumer for moving that through the Senate and getting unanimous consent. I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about that, Selena?
It's so odd to me, the things that they're pushing on getting passed right now. One of the biggest parts of that article that kind of drove me crazy was the part where Ron Johnson said, I just think it's kind of odd that apparently the only way to, celebrate the end of slavery is to give 2 million federal workers a paid day off, costing Americans, taxpayers, $600 million. And you think about where that's coming from. It's like, how much did this cost, in spreading misinformation for like COVID-19, specifically Ron Johnson doing that. So it's just weird when they have these crazy objections to these things. I think it's fantastic. I love that, there are events going on right now that people can join. But, in the back of my mind, I fear it's window dressing.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at it this way. It will pass. I mean, if it passes the Senate, I can't see the Democrats turning this down. We should say that Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas and John Cornyn from Texas, he's a Republican, are the ones that put the bill up, and they actually introduced it last year after the killings of George Floyd. And it got 18 Republican co-sponsors, which is shocking. I mean, Juneteenth in particular impacts both Texas and I believe Maryland were the other state that actually were the last states to actually end slavery. So this is actually great that it did that, but I think you're right. It's like they're worried about $600 million. And I'm like, all the years of enslaved labor that you had, and you worry about $600 million. That slave labor that built this country.
Exactly. And my concern is turning, something. One, are we going to be teaching the history behind it? Like, it's great that this is happening if we're going to make a real reckoning of the history behind it. But clearly we can see that there's pushes to not do that. But yeah, I just fear that it's going to become another cartoon like we do with all of our other federal holidays.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a start. It's part of what we have to do is change the culture. Right. And then once we can begin to change the culture, it's actually easier to change society. But it takes a minute to be able to get to that place. And in the grand scheme of things, it's the least they could do.
Exactly.
It's the least.
Great
it's not
point.
The most. This is not reparations. This is not equivalent to reparations. It is not equivalent to the evil that has been inflicted upon African American human beings since time immemorial in this country. But it's the least they could do is acknowledge that day. And I mean, if you think about it, we have holidays just about for everybody else.
Right.
The only holiday they ever gave us was the King holiday, and then we had to fight for that. And now we are finally getting Juneteenth as an acknowledgement toward the end of slavery. Now, if we could get, most people get New Year's Day off anyway. But, the acknowledgement of December 31st and the 1st is the ending of, as the beginning of the Emancipation Proclamation. That would be very nice too, right? So then we got the
Yes.
Emancipation Proclamation, we have Juneteenth, and then we have the MLK holiday in there, and of course we need Obama's birthday as well. So if we could get that too.
Throw my name on that list too. Spicy pecan. Put it put it in that.
So hey, wait a minute. Tell us about your podcast. What is your
Oh Lord.
podcast about? Tell us about
Uh,
Spicy Pecan.
I talk a lot about the topics that you talk about. I do my interviews. I typically try to be solution based. So, for example, during the COVID or during the lockdowns, a lot of people were talking about like sustainable living and things like that. So I interviewed a bunch of people or Black urban farmers to teach people the different things that they can do in their own lives. But we mostly talk about, or I mostly talk about economic justice, social justice. So I give free finance advice away. I talk to people that can give like a personal accounting of, something that kind of relates to us.
Okay. Okay. And where can folk find that podcast if they want to check that out?
I am on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube, all under Spicy Pecan Podcast.
Okay. So what's up with the Spicy Pecan thing? So
Spicy pecan, I guess it just kind of describes my personality. And I'm half black, half Puerto Rican. So I wanted something to kind of show like the Puerto Rican side. So it's pecan, and that also, it's a southern nut, so it's also black, like in my mind. This is how I'm coming up with the title. And then of course, everyone always says like my mouth is pretty crazy, like, watch, you're pretty spicy. So just put everything together.
the Spicy
Couple of
Pecan.
meanings.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, no, that's actually interesting. So, because we have the Black Faith, Black Power podcast that we're doing at Power right
Which is
now.
amazing.
Thank you. I mean, we're excited. I guess another episode will be coming out this week
Yes.
with the Reverend Dr. Greg Edwards, which is really cool. And we actually are having a special gathering on Thursday night with African American religious leaders from across the city of Philadelphia. So, called Black Faith, Black Power. So we're real pumped up about that. If you're actually interested in that, you can hit us up at Power Interfaith, and you'll find it on our calendar if you're interested in signing up. If you're a religious leader, this is for religious leaders to come and be a part of that conversation with us as we talk about Black power building in Black faith traditions to be able to make that work.
That is so necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting. When doing this show, I always get a kick. People are like, "We need the Black church to do this, to do that," and I'm like, "Well, one, the Black church is there because we're there, and we are the Black church." But then there's also like this deeper notion, right? There's this. I always chuckle. There was a conversation at a mini documentary. This is early morning.
Yes, it is.
Made. And Andrew Jackson was interviewed, who's one of Dr. King's lieutenants. And when he was talking about like Southern Christian Leadership Conference, he was like, SCLC really was only 14 churches that was working in the South between Georgia and Alabama. It wasn't even just, it was 14 churches between Georgia and Alabama. And other people came on over time, but in the very beginning it was only 14 congregations. And I think people often feel like, oh my goodness, we have to have everybody and everybody's got to get on board and we've all got to be on the same page. And it just doesn't always work that way. It's not that simple. But we do need to have folk that have their minds expanded and are willing to take some risk, right? To be able to use what we often refer to as prophetic power to be able to create change. I mean, we're trying to build beloved community. We're trying to build a society where everybody's thriving. And it's not even an issue of wanting to flip so that Black folk have all the power. It's really an issue of can we get to equity and then get to a place where everybody's able to thrive. Our children have the best education. Everybody's got health care. Everyone has access to the resources that they need. One job is enough to be able to live off of, to be able to raise a family and do all those things, right? Can we get to that place? And until we are actually able to get to that place, then we have to continue to fight. And it's my estimation, my understanding, my belief that, we're not supposed to be at war with one another. We're not supposed to be fighting one another. We're not supposed to be killing one another. That we're supposed to be able to find ways to work together and through our difference. And that we should see our difference as a blessing and not a curse to one another. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
And
So,
you know, specifically that it's a specific challenge to clergy just because um, religion in general, structured religion in general, has marketing issues these days. You know, I mean, to put it, I mean, it's not the thing that everyone is flocking to. So how do we transform the Black church in inviting the community back?
mhm.
And I think that that conversation is just so powerful and just so needed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we are up on our first break here. And when we get back, we want to talk about this case of something that happened in Savannah, Georgia. There are a group of police officers that have been fired after uh, I want to say a defendant was in, a person had been arrested and he wound up killing himself in jail. And now there's a lot of questions about what happened. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get back on the other side. You are listening to the Power Hour with Bishop Dwayne Worcester and Selena Singleton. We'll be right back.
For the past 10 years, Comcast has been helping students get ready. We've connected 5 million students from low-income families to low-cost, high-speed internet. We're working with both nonprofit partners and city leaders to create over 1,000 Wi-Fi connected lift zones in community centers nationwide. And now we're committing $1 billion to reach 50 million people with the connectivity, skills, training, and the resources they need to succeed in a digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/education.
Father's Day is coming up. For all the WURD Radio fathers, uncles, grandfathers, brothers, we say Happy Father's Day. In keeping with the spirit of Juneteenth, WURD Radio wants to make sure all black men are aware of the importance of colon cancer screening. It can save your life. In partnership with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, the Independence Blue Cross Foundation, Penn Medicine, and LabCorp, WURD Radio reminds our listeners that the Go to Know campaign provides free, at-home colon cancer screening tests. Simply go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner. Submit your information, and a screening navigator will contact you directly. After a quick survey, if you qualify, they will mail a free screening kit to you. It's that easy and takes less than 10 minutes. So dads, uncles, brothers, grandfathers, cousins, go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Bishop Dwayne Royster, along with Selena Singleton, who's sitting in for the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. We're here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news, happenings around Philadelphia, and, of course, our opinion. And we have plenty of opinions to share with you each and every morning. All right, so one of the things that we often talk about on the show early in the mornings are the issues that we have with the police. And it's not just Philly cops, but we bring stories about what's happening around the country. And so there's this particular issue that happened in Savannah Police Department in Savannah, Georgia, after the death of a man by the name of William Harvey. Mr. Harvey had been arrested. And then he was taken to the county jail. And while he was being interrogated, for some unknown reason, the police did not turn on the camera in the interrogation room.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the officers evidently left the room, did not turn the camera on, And when they came back into the room, Mr. Harvey was dead. They
Yeah.
are Several police officers have been fired, not because of his death, but because of insubordination, treatments of others, truthfulness, honesty, and failing to live up to professional standards. Just note, you didn't hear anything about his death in that.
Not at all.
But
It's like when Breonna Taylor, it was like the biggest thing was the bullets that went into the neighbor's apartment. That's what
yeah,
this reminds me of.
yeah. So there's actually, I think it's 7 officers that have been let go. But I mean, this is just very problematic in that they're let go, but it has nothing to do. I mean, they failed to do their jobs appropriately, but they're not being charged with his death. They're being charged with all the things that they did to fail to prevent him from dying. And I think that that is a problem. And then there was another investigation that was open because there were several officers that were chatting about this, and they were sending an inappropriate meme with that as well. And so, this is really messy. This is just really messy. So the supervisors got canned, the officers got canned. Now, of course, if they have the FOP like we do here in Philadelphia, they're probably going to get their jobs back.
Right.
But this is just really tragic. I mean, at what point is it, you know, yeah, this is like Sandra Bland. This is
Mysterious, all the details we don't know, no autopsy, no toxicology report, and he committed suicide. You know, the idea of someone committing suicide under like the state's watch is just so ridiculous. You don't even get shoelaces. You know, I mean, and they're actually citing that as being the thing that he used to do it. I don't believe one thing that they're trying to present as fact in the article. It's too muddy, and it just does not make any clear sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I break shoelaces on a regular basis, just tying my shoes. And so the notion that somebody is able to actually, hang themselves with shoelaces, I just think I always find that a little bit questionable.
It's almost like we're the fools. Like, this is the story that you came up with. This was the best that you could do when you had the convenience of not having to release body cameras, not having to release surveillance from the interrogation room. Yeah, no, it's bogus.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate too because it's only recent history that they started actually recording the interrogations. So the question for me always is, how many people has this happened to prior to that we just don't know about? Because, they were like, oh, they died in custody, and that was all what the answer was. As a matter of fact, our colleagues up at Voice Buffalo have been addressing the issue up there. They've had like 25 deaths in their county jail of young people under the age
Oh
of
my
20,
goodness.
25 that all seem to be from natural causes. And so they're looking, into, trying to figure out what the deal is up there and, really shaking it to the sheriff, the county sheriff up there that's in charge of the jails about, why do all these young people keep dying on your watch? It's one thing if somebody's got health condition or other things. These young folk normally healthy, and all of a sudden they're dead.
And that's sad because I hadn't even heard about that. So that just goes back to the point that you made. How often do these things actually happen? And we know that they're happening every single day across the country all the time.
Yeah, every single day. This is just a thing. I don't know. I'm so frustrated by this because you would think that after, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Sandra Bland, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, Rika Boyd, right, Tamir Rice. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yes.
Walter Wallace here in Philadelphia. There's so many names that you could just call out. At some point, when did the police begin to wake up and begin to say enough is enough? And I guess the question is, the flip of that too is that at some point, black folk are just going to get totally fed up with this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing that I feel that unfortunately we are just so conditioned because the things that we see on a daily basis or deal with and just stand there, you know, we're George Floyd being a perfect example. We are so conditioned to simply stand there and scream. We have absolutely no other recourse. And we are just so conditioned to not oppose them, to oppose police. So, yeah, I don't see much, I don't see much change here just because this is par for the course. This is how it was designed. Without organizations like Power, this is just what happens to people. This is how the system was designed. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. We are meant to be powerless. We are meant to be killed with minimal, minimal effect.
Yeah, I mean, part of the challenge that we also faced too, right, was the creation of the war on drugs, right, and that actually increased incarceration in this country.
Oh, of course.
And one of the things that's coming up is that Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman from New Jersey and Cori Bush of Missouri, Cori Bush of Marjorie Taylor Greene chasing her down the hall and having to change her office because she was being attacked by that crazy Congresswoman, MTG, which I guess is supposed to be the solution to AOC. They have introduced a bill called the Drug Policy Reform Act, which would decriminalize drug possession and end punitive practices in favor of health-centered approaches dealing with drugs in this country. And this is an article that's coming out of the GRIO. And, back in 1971, Richard Nixon called drug abuse public enemy number one. And of course, it was a criminal activity. Now that, especially like here in Philadelphia and Kensington, where more and more white folk are, utilizing opioids, now it's become a health issue. Well, let's make it a health issue for everybody and decriminalize it all the way around. And so that they are pushing to decriminalize, to get rid of charges, help to erase records of people that have had drug charges and so forth. So, I mean, I think that that's a great bill that could be really transformative for our community and actually help people get their lives back.
Absolutely. This is much needed, overdue. The war on drugs was a war against humanity. That was never the way to solve it. I feel like there's been so much research to show that it was a bad call. It was a terrible call that we continued to double down on because it was so profitable. And it was just an extension of what we had previously had. So the only thing that frustrates me about this stuff, Bishop, and you could tell me if I'm being petty, but it just seems like when it comes to other groups of people, when there's damage being done, like the Asian hate bill being passed or opioids showing up in the suburbs, all of a sudden that's when we start doing something. And it's just so frustrating because time after time we just see the exact same story playing over and over. These things are created to keep us in line, jail us, and then it starts to trickle to another group. And then all of a sudden it's a problem when it starts to affect them. And it's just very frustrating, frustrating seeing this. I want to be happy. I so want to be happy because this is needed. This is something that touches, my heart. I talk about addiction on my show. I've been sober for over 4 years myself, very near and dear to my heart. But it is so frustrating that, where was the help when we needed it? When we were literally dying in the streets, when people's parents were being ripped from them. I mean, I personally know people who have been affected by, this specific thing. So it's just, I'm happy. I am happy. But, hopefully they can get something like this passed. It's definitely needed. This was a war we should have never been fighting.
Yeah, I mean, this bill is really comprehensive, right? So it removes all criminal penalties for drug possession. It would expunge records, shift regulatory authority over controlled substances from the Attorney General to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which it should probably have been in the first place.
Right.
Reinvest funds in drug treatment and pre-arrest diversion programs. prohibit the denial of employment or employment termination because of drug possession history, drug testing for people who receive, it would, oh, okay, I would also, people who get drug tested who receive federal benefits, it would stop that, and it would stop denial of immigration status due to drug use. So, I mean, that's a pretty powerful piece of legislation right there. And it could be, this thing. I mean, it's actually interesting for me. I get in arguments with people about this. So I have been very clear, because there are folk here who, wanted to get, some folk wanted to get this, the drug center in Kensington, like, let it be a safe use center. And, my whole thing was, if you're going to do that, I will not support anything like that until you first expunge the record and release everybody out of prison who has been in there for nonviolent drug offenses. And there are folk that are sitting in prison right now for nonviolent drug offenses, whether it's distribution or whether it is, or whether it's use, one way or the other. So, I have a real piece and a beef about that, because I just think, it's not okay to move on and be like, all of a sudden, oh my goodness, we're going to take care of folk and we're going to do the right thing. And then you still have all these folk that are dragging a train load of issues that prevent them from getting jobs, prevent them from getting housing, prevent them from getting health care benefits, because they have this drug history. So you can't do one without doing the other. You got to do both of them simultaneously. If you want to decriminalize, cool, I'm supportive of that, only and if at the same time you go back and expunge everybody's records so they have no more records, they can get a real job. I mean, when you think about it, the two biggest employers in the city of Philadelphia are education institutions and healthcare institutions. We're a healthcare mecca. And if you have most drug possessions will prevent you from getting a job in either one of those industries. And so it is absolutely imperative that if we're going to actually be able to turn Philadelphia around, then we cannot let drug charges be used as a vehicle to prevent people from working in education and or in the healthcare industry. And I think that's, folk need treatment, they need support, they need services, other things. But I mean, if you have a 20-year record from 20 years ago and it's preventing you from getting a job today, I mean, come on, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. The fun, again, back to when we're involved, like, it's illegal when it's numbers running, but not when it's the lottery.
Come on now. Come on now. Come on, speak truth.
I'm constantly, we see these stories just, it just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. What we choose to make criminal, the drug dealers, people doing drugs, and that's the bad thing, but not the people who are working for banks stealing people's houses. That's not criminal though, right? It's the people who are associated with drugs. That's the really bad problem. Criminalizing it was the actual issue. Mm-hmm. Criminalizing it made it become the bigger monster. But yeah, I just, this stuff just drives me crazy because it's all about profit.
Yeah, it absolutely has been about profit. And I appreciate you bringing up the numbers running thing, right? Because, that's actually a real piece, right? We complain about numbers running. Now we got mega billions. We have, scratch offs. You have all kinds of lotteries you want. And as long as it's benefiting the government, they're okay with it. But when it was just, a small community-based thing, it became very problematic in terms. Now, let me be clear. I am not condoning numbers running. Okay?
Right. No, we're not condoning drug use. We're not condoning numbers running.
Right. But I'm just saying.
The point should be made. The point should be made. Like right now, cannabis is now going to be a huge moneymaker. For who? For who? Who's going to actually end up seeing that money? Right. And it's the exact same game. And the thing is we're now in 2021 playing the same game that they were playing in that scenario with the numbers running. And whatever else, because we don't know our full history. So we can't even take accounting of how much has actually, how many of these patterns we've actually seen. But
absolutely. I mean, we should say, so our colleague, Tawanda Stallworth, is saying, I wonder if these would apply beyond federal criminal charges. or criminal records, which I think is a good question. That would be helpful. Um, and
Absolutely.
she was also noting that a lot of people are, part of the challenge is that people plead down to possession charges when they have higher charges. So that's always a challenge there too. And then I see Robert Garland out here saying, "Hey, we need a reinvention of capitalism." I totally agree with you on that,
Feeling
Robert.
that, Robert.
I am feeling that, and it's so funny. I was talking about this the other day. We were staff meeting, and I was like, I was talking with one of our clergy colleagues out there, and I was talking about how unfettered capitalism is impacting the church and impacting the world around us, and they got really upset about that.
Ooh.
Yes, I am not all into capitalism, just so you all know that. I believe there's got to be a better way for us to live other than, oppressing people and people hoarding wealth.
Listen, I told you at the top of the show, I did an episode about homesteading. Bishop, I was really about to pack my bag.
I hear you.
But that stable, reliable Wi-Fi, that is such a seductive.
I'm not mad at you. I understand. I completely understand. And shout out to Mackenzie Scott, who is the former wife of Jeff Bezos, who gave away $2.7 billion yesterday to 286 organizations around the country, many of whom do major work around racial and economic justice, and some interfaith organizations. Faith in Action, which is the parent organization to Power, got some of that money, and so to put to good use. So we're very excited for them. Congratulations to Reverend Alvin Herring and all of the team at Faith in Action for making that happen. All right, we're up on our next break, and so you're listening to the Power Hour with Selena Singleton and Dwayne Royster, who's she's sitting in for the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. We'll be right back.
Tune in to More Than That with Gia Peppers live this Sunday, June 20th at 1 p.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts. This Juneteenth episode of More Than That is sponsored by General Motors as a part of their commitment to becoming one of the most inclusive companies in the world. Everybody in.
I'm on the first train of the morning.
By 7:30.
I go in when it's dark.
Llego a las 5 de la mañana durante la semana.
From first thing to third shift.
SEPTA is the Philly way to go.
Plan your trip at iseptaphilly.com.
Welcome Black. It's time to reawaken, reopen, and renew as WURD kicks off our annual 4WURD Early Bird Membership Special. We've stood together every step of the way during the pandemic. Here at WURD, our hosts and producers, elders, parents, children, teachers, doctors, and community leaders stood up, shared resources, and supported each other through the airwaves, virtual events, and of course, the phone lines. We've stayed connected by every means necessary. Let's welcome the new season, the reopening of the city, and our new normal together. Stand with WURD. Start or renew your sustaining 4WURD membership for the special price of $75. Or if you just want to support the work we're doing, there is now an option to become a digital 4WURD member for as little as $5 per month. Visit wordradio.com/earlybird between now and June 19th to take advantage of our early bird membership special. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by ExpressPros.com. 95 southbound. That is a busy ride this morning. Copping down the bridge again from Betsy Ross through Girard northbound side. No issues there to report. Westbound Vine delays from 8th out the Brodigan Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill Expressway southeast to westbound. Not too bad as of yet. Same thing on the Boulevard southbound from Broad down to Fox. Building volume through that work zone. 55 northbound Deptford into 42 now. A bit slow. Now is the time to get a new job. Express Employment Professionals never charges job seekers a fee and has more than 35,000 job openings with high demand in construction, driving, logistics, and administrative jobs. Find the location near you at expresspros.com or on the Express Jobs app. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Bright sunshine, comfortable conditions with very low humidity, a high near 80 this afternoon. A bit breezy, similar to yesterday, but that's the dry air that's going to keep it comfortable for Thursday and Friday. Tomorrow, sunshine, 79 after a morning low of 56 degrees, 57 the low on Friday. A bit warmer in the afternoon with partly sunny skies, but the humidity stays low on Friday with a high of 86. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Selena Singleton, who's sitting in for the vacationing Mark Kelly Tyler. Hey, thank you to everyone who attended last week's special live broadcast to kick off the reopening of our city. Join us again this Saturday, June 19th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at 52nd and Haverford in front of Spectrum Health for our Juneteenth live broadcast. And the last day to join or renew your onWURD membership for the early bird rate of $75. For more information, go to wordradio.com, and we'll see you on Saturday. So that's a special broadcast with Michael Cord that's going to be held at the that's 52nd and Haverford in front of Spectrum Health. So feel free to check that out. All right. So, Power's been working on this campaign around full fair funding. As a matter of fact, we have a series of actions coming up next week on the 21st that we're pushing out to get our state legislature to finally sign the governor's bill that will put about $1.5 billion into K-12 education. And the money will finally be distributed equitably across the state of Pennsylvania. We're real excited about this. We're pushing and looking to make that happen. Here's the thing: we want our children to get all the resources they need. In Texas, the governor of Texas just signed a law to stop social studies teachers from talking about racism. A new law.
Shocker.
Governor Greg Abbott in Texas signed a new law into effect, I think it was yesterday, aimed at stopping teachers from talking about racism in any current events that may be contentious. This legislation was supported by every GOP state legislator, and in Texas, the Republicans control both the House and the Senate there. And basically it says that any social studies teachers in public K-12 schools may not be compelled to talk about current events or public policy or social issues considered controversial. This is out of the Huffington Post. And Joy Reid also covered this on MSNBC as well. They can't talk about they can't talk about being discriminated against or receiving adverse treatment solely or partly because of individual's race. They can't talk about an individual's moral character, standing, or worth is necessarily determined by individual's race or sex. They can't be compelled to make people feel discomforted, guilty, anguished, or any other form of psychological distress because of race or sex. I mean, this thing is like you can't talk about the advent of slavery in the United States was central to the founding of the United States. It's
unbelievable.
It's an unbelievable law that was signed into. If you all think voting doesn't matter,
listen,
it matters.
Yes, it does matter.
It matters.
What do you even say to something like this? It's like, I just have to go back to, what is school for? Or what are we preparing these children for? A life of video games or a life in the real world? You can't talk about discrimination.
This is about indoctrination. This is not about, it's not about education. It's about indoctrination.
It's about watering down of history.
Yep. I mean, in any society, no society is perfect. And you have to be able to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in society. And so basically, it's like some of the school districts in Texas, I remember when they were doing this, they were talking about slavery as if it was just a natural part of life and society, and that the slaves were happy being slaves.
Right,
They wanted to come here from Africa and be slaves.
There's literature, poems, stories have been written with lines in it, the happy slaves, and absolutely, it's ridiculous. And, they do not want to teach the truth, because imagine if they actually did, or when they do, imagine, what will happen.
Yeah, State Rep James Tarascio, who used to be a school teacher, said basically the idea is to whitewash American history of any legacy of racism. And I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, this is about, this is about battling critical race theory. The other thing is that they are trying to battle the 1619 Project.
Right.
So this is,
Right.
many of you know, New York Times. It was Hannah, I was going to say
Jones.
her, yeah, Hannah Jones. That was, and it's a hyphenated last name, so I'm
Yeah.
about that right now. But it was a powerful piece that came out of the that was coming out of New York Times, and Nicole Hannah Jones, that's her name, yeah, who actually many of you know just had a big issue at UNC because the board of trustees did not want to give her tenure.
Oh, right.
Because of the 1619 Project, because they were getting too much flack from their Confederate friends. That they were getting calls from, the white supremacists in the South that were having issue with her because it uses critical race theory as a vehicle to be able to go back and take a look at the founding of the United States. You cannot talk about the founding of the United States without looking at the deep implications of white supremacy and anti-blackness and racism and slavery. It has to be in there. The economy of the United States of America did not exist except for the fact that there was that they were enslaved black folk that were creating the wealth of this nation.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can just act like, that stuff didn't happen.
That's bad for business if you're a white supremacist. That is bad for business. What? No, we don't want more people knowing actual fact about what we've done, because then they're going to be able to see patterns and nip it in the bud when they see it in the future. And now too many people know. No, 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 no. We can't have that. No.
This is
happy slaves.
Yeah, I mean, and the challenge is that you can't then become a super supporter of American capitalism if, in fact, you don't understand that capitalism was built off of slavery, that American capitalism was built off the backs of the misery. My good friend, Dr. Steve Raves, the president of Chicago Theological Seminary, talks about this all the time. He says that he's also an economist. He said the American economy was built off the misery of dark-skinned bodies. Let me say that again. He didn't say it was built off dark-skinned bodies. He said it was built off the misery of dark-skinned bodies. And he said that every time the American economy improved, you always saw it on the backs of dark-skinned bodies. You saw the marks of it on dark-skinned bodies. So it improved, basically, it was a correlation, and it was basically the deeper the misery of dark-skinned bodies, the better the American economy.
And it's still true today.
Absolutely.
It is still very much true today. So,
I would absolutely say that and agree with that. That is part of the challenge that we have with this country right now. That this is the sin of America. That we continue to build our nation, our capitalist structures, off the misery of dark-skinned body.
Yeah.
I always go back, and I've talked about this over and over again, that the day Donald Trump got elected, GEO and CCA, who are two major private prison industries, their stock went up 300%. Why is that? It's the misery of dark-skinned bodies. There were going to be more black and more brown folk that were going to be put in jails and prisons and detention centers. And what's interesting was that the Trump administration deported less people, not because they didn't want to deport people. It was because their friends, Trump's friends, were making more money off black and brown folk being in jail. And so that was part of that whole scenario that was going on in that space. So definitely doing that. Wow, our time is just about up here. Wow,
I know. Look at that.
Yeah. Actually, let me see. Robert Garland said they want to hide the connection between slavery and capitalism as well. I totally agree with you. And I'm like, that's why I can't be a fan of capitalism.
Right.
Because capitalism, as we understand it, both in the European context and the American context, were built off slavery. We need to remember slavery didn't start in America. It did not start here. It started in Europe.
The craziest part is the better we do, the better everyone does, and that has been proven time and time again. But
yeah. So anyway, it's been a real challenge to do that, and we got to help black folk understand capitalism is not in our interest. We might try to portray that it is, but it is not in our best interest. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for checking us out here on the Power Hour. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news happenings around Philadelphia and, of course, our opinions, which we have plenty of. Thank you, Selena, for sitting in for the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler. Thank you, Koisa, for holding down the boards, making sure that we're live on the air. Thank you to everybody that listened to us on the air through the app, everybody that checked us out through Facebook and YouTube today. Hey, you might even be listening to us through Alexa. Hey, Alexa, turn on WURD Radio. Stay tuned now for Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. And listen, folks, go out and do us a favor. Go change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.